Damn, son, where'd you find this?
Yeah, got the scoop on how to get it bulletproof. Sex busting off the roof, but when I was a teenager, on the phone sky page, game rules and living page. My adversary.
Car is really fast. It's so sad. There's a lot of stuff with the steering wheel.
There's a lot of stuff on the steering wheel. Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. You've joined me today in the 2021 Audi R8 V10 Performance. This is the last time we'll be driving an Audi R8 with a V10 engine, particularly in this form, without any kind of turbocharging or any kind of electrical assistance system. This is still the naturally aspirated 5.2 litre V10 that puts out around 449 kilowatt, around 570 Newton meters of torque. And the engine is very similar to the unit used in the Lamborghini Huracan. In the Evo version of the Huracan, the engine makes more power at 470. So I'll just fire it up and let's go for a quick drive, and I'll share some of my thoughts on the 2021 R8 V10 Performance. As you can hear with the firing up, it's fairly loud. It's not a completely cold start this morning, as I've just kind of used the car to do a bit of errands, and now we're back on the road. But it's still kind of warming up. When the car is warming up, you don't get all of your revs. The red line actually moves forward to about 6,000 RPM to kind of save the engine, allow you to heat the car up a little bit, get all the fluids nice and hot, and so you have that restricted limiter. But once the car warms up, the rev limiter moves all the way up to 8,500 RPM. And as I mentioned earlier, this car makes 449 kilowatt, and that 449 kilowatt comes in at 8,250 RPM. So if you want to explore the power on this car, you're going to be at the upper end of the rev range in the lower gears, particularly on the road. On a track, of course, you can stretch the gears, you can kind of explore really high speeds in this car. Audi says it will do 330 kilometers an hour if it's left unrestricted, and trust me, it will get to 330 kilometers an hour very quickly. Incidentally, 0 to 100 takes just 3.3 seconds on a good day, on a good surface. And that's thanks to the Quattro all-wheel drive system and the built-in launch control. We had planned to take this car on a nice cross-country journey to meet up with an original R8 V8 manual, one of the first supercars that I tested way back in the day. You could say at the dawn of the recession, because this car, the original R8 at least, arrived when the world was kind of going through, you know, a real bad time with the global financial crisis. And Audi launched the car to great success despite the world falling apart, despite the global banking system not knowing what it's doing with itself. The R8 really found success in that first generation, and now in the second generation, also hugely successful, particularly in Europe, as well as the Far East, and of course the USA. Most recently in the USA, they received the rear wheel series of this car. I think they just received around 300 cars, rear wheel drive only. 999 were made for the world. The US also received the Decennium model, which was kind of a celebration of 10 years of Audi R8. But here we are in South Africa with the V10 Performance. It's the only version you get. You get it in a Spider with the folding roof, or this closed top. Quickly launch it for you here. That's just 2 gears, and it's so quick, and it's so quick off the line thanks to the Quattro and the way it's able to dig into the corners and into the road, dial it up again into dynamic, so that opens up a bit of the exhaust flaps, so you can hear the slightly deeper rumble from the exhaust and from the engine. And of course it will do more of the backfiring, more of those snap, crackle, pop things. But overall, I must say, for what it's worth, at 3.5 million rand, and it's difficult to talk about cars being valuable or kind of, you know, value oriented at this price point, 3.5 million. But if you want a Lamborghini experience, you're going to spend closer to 5 million rand for a naturally aspirated kind of car. The only other options you have in this kind of naturally aspirated segment is perhaps a Lexus LC500, which isn't going to keep up, unfortunately. It'll sound awesome, but it's not going to keep up with this car. And maybe at a lower rung, you could look at a Lexus RCF and the new Mustang Mark 1, if you still want naturally aspirated feels in your sports car. But the Audi R8 really now, at the end of its life cycle, as e-tron is coming, as the electrification of more and more of Audi's products kind of take over, the R8 V10 is a reminder that this is the car you should buy if you can afford it right now, and just keep forever and ever, because car makers are not going to make cars like this anymore. As the rules change and as the emissions laws tighten around the world and kind of OEMs look to downsize, 5.2 liter V10s are not going to be around for a very long time. So I would recommend going out, taking one for a test drive, have a look around the car, and then just see if it's the kind of vehicle that appeals to you. I think it will. If you like fast cars, if you like sporty cars. I'm going to pull over and show you around some of the exterior tweaks that they've done for 2021. It's not much, but it really sets the car apart. And let's jump outside and take a look. So a quick look around the front of the car first. You'll notice a slightly more aggressive front end on the 2021 R8. They've given it these Quattro style intake look-alike things here. They're not functional though, but they're kind of cool, give it that look. You'll see it on the A1 quite prominently, of all things, and on the range topper, these Quattro style homage to the old car. And then they've also added these darkened sections here at the front to offset the headlamp. The headlamp, incidentally, on this car is the laser light option, and Audi's fitted laser lights to this thing, which is really nice, because in a low slung sports car, what happens is, because you're sitting low on the ground and the car is sitting low on the ground, the throw might not be as impactful if it were a standard LED or something like that. So the laser light really helps give you good vision at night and in bad weather particularly. So I would recommend speccing the laser light. I think it's about 50,000 Rand as an option, but a great option to take. And then you'll notice that when the vehicle passes, you will notice a slightly more aggressive treatment of the intake on this side, with this slat across here and some fakery going on there, but these are functional. These let air into the radiators and into the coolers there at the front. And then this car's got the black out Audi rings and the blackout R8 badge at the front, which kind of signifies that it's the range topping performance model. We only get the performance model here, the 449 kilowatt version, which makes about 560 newton meters of torque, and it sends all that power to all four wheels through the Quattro system through a 7-speed automatic S-tronic. So yeah, that's the front of the car. Not much has changed, but subtle changes that have brought it into line with some of the more aggressive looking competitors out there, like the Huracan and the McLaren 570, stuff like that. So I like the front end treatment because it's not too aggressive. The front's not too low. There's not too much of a protrusion here that's going to scrape. I brought the car up onto the driveway here. No scraping, as long as you're careful with the kind of nose. It's a practical thing that's not going to slow you down over speed bumps and things like that. So really nice treatment of the front end here. Getting in and out of the car is pretty easy. Comfortable seats, and then firing it up. Got a soft limiter on it when it's cold, of course, and the limiter is variable, as I mentioned when we were driving around. But as you'll see, as I pulled away there, didn't scrape the front end or anything like that that you'd get on some of the more extreme cars out there. And very usable and very practical. It's loud and it's a supercar, and of course it's going to get stares everywhere you go and attract attention and things like that. But where you thought the 911 was your only option really for an everyday usable supercar, this R8 has really come a long way in recent years to become a force to be reckoned with, basically, in the supercar world. A practical supercar for every day. Now, while the front of the car and the side of the car might be quite interesting, it's the back of the car that most people will be seeing because it's so fast and you will be driving it quickly. The back of the car has to be one of the most impressive sights I've seen on a supercar, modern one, classic one, whatever it may be. The treatment with this widened blackout area here not only makes the car look more aggressive compared to some of the previous versions, but it's actually functional. It's extracting heat from the 5.2 litre naturally aspirated V10 that's tucked away under the back. You can see the insides. You can see the gizzards, basically. You can see the exhaust glowing hot in the bends. When you really drive it hard and you come back and you park the car, you'll see them like kind of glowing at night. Of course, it has ridiculously large tailpipe pieces. These things are way too big on any car. I don't know, Matt Watson uses the stick of truth. You probably need a tree of truth for this. But there are some real pipes in there, and of course they're twin pipes. So when you start the car up in an auto mode or in a comfort mode, the one flap is closed, so not so aggressive of a startup. And if you want the loud startup, you basically turn on the accessory mode on the ignition, select dynamic before starting the car. So you toggle it into dynamic mode, and then put your foot on the brake, and then you start the car. But then, of course, wait for the complaints because it's very loud on cold start especially. And you've got this diffuser section, which actually it does extend quite a bit underneath the car. So there is some actual diffusing going on here, working obviously in tandem with now the fixed rear wing, which is carbon fiber on this car. And you've got this aero package sucking the car down at very high speed. And amazingly enough, with the aero on the car and the kind of trickery that's going on to keep this thing stuck to the road, it's actually capable of doing a 330 kilometer an hour top speed, which it'll do all day long, as long as you're happy to keep filling up the fuel tank. But it's such a comfortable car at speed, and it accelerates so quickly, and then it has so much grip and so much poise and dynamics in the corners. You're able to get on the power, exploit its grip and its aero sometimes, perhaps if you take it to a track. It's an amazing package, and again the rear just highlights for me what a beautiful car the R8 is, with these lights. The indicators of course run in that cascading way that you do, and it's got a signature kind of light display here at night. It's a very compelling thing that I guess we will see stylistically in the future. You're not going to need so much of air vents and things like that on the electric or electrified versions of these cars in the future. But a very nicely designed car. It sits so well on the road. It sits so well anywhere, in any environment. And pictures and video probably makes it look quite big, but it's 911 sized, and it'll fit in a garage, it'll fit in a parking bay, it'll go up and down ramps, and yeah, it's very usable and very nice. Okay, and then moving on to the side of the car, you'll notice something different to the Generation 1 R8, which had this carbon blade that extended the full side of the panel. This one's now split on the Generation 2. This car's got carbon fiber blades on the side, at the top and at the bottom, and we've got the black inserts at the bottom, of course, with the performance edition or the performance model coming out with these black sections and things like that. You'll notice as well that this car does not have the standard wheel on it. This is the optional 20-inch wheel, and it's fitted with the Michelin PS4S tires, very nice tires, and they work from the moment you kind of get on the road. There's no need to kind of get heat into them. Of course, they do perform better with heat in them, but they're really nice everyday tires that give you really nice grip on the front end. And at the front, you've got 2, 4, 5, 30, 20s, and it's just the right size, nothing ridiculous like 22 or 23-inch wheels that you get on some cars now. So a really nice manageable size of tire, and a nice wheel and tire package. Inside the wheel, you've got ceramic brake system, carbon ceramic brakes by Audi. They've painted the calipers blue for this, I guess we'd say, the run-out edition of the car. And you'll notice it, if you see blue and it says Audi ceramic on it, you know it's a 2021 Audi R8. And very nice wheel and tire package, very nice brake system. I find that in that first few kilometers that you get into the car, you're going to find it difficult to modulate the initial bite on the brake, bringing the car to a complete stop at an intersection or something like that, especially when they're cold. They bite, then they feel like they're letting go, but they're still biting. But then you just lean on the pedal a little bit more, and then the car will stop, of course. But of course, then when you're going for it, when you've got some nice heat in them, they are razor sharp. I was cutting through the roads around the cradle of humankind, and then going through the gears and then standing on the brakes again for some of those speed bumps, those big speed bumps that they have on the road out there. The car just scrubs off speed as amazingly as it puts on the speed. I mentioned that it does 0 to 100 in about 3.2, 3.3 seconds on a good day. And that's, of course, at the coast with all its kilowatt available. It's so fast, but it brakes so well. So, and that comes down to the brakes and the tires. And of course, at the back, you've also got 20s, but these are slightly wider, of course, to give you better grip. The 305s at the back, and you've got another set of ceramics here at the back to slow you down. So really nice side profile, finished in carbon, white in some colors or in some light situations, but then it does have a gray effect to it. I'd like to see this car in a color called crayon that Porsche actually used on the 911. So I'd like to, if I had one, I'd probably ask for crayon. But very nice side profile, distinctly Audi R8. You can't mistake it for any other car. And some will say, a supercar needs its doors to open upward and things like that, but it's a practical car. It works nicely. The door opening is generous enough for you to park next to another car and have your door open just enough for you to get in and out. So it's not uncomfortable that way. And really nice visibility from the window out there. You've got a good view from the cabin.